we would call a Discover Arbonne, but I'm going to do it Kristen style. So it's going to be a little different. So bear with me. And then I would love if we could have a Q&A, open conversation about it following. So, okay, so let's go from there. This literally popped in, almost like a download. So bear with me and we'll see how it goes. All right. So everyone can mute themselves. That would be really helpful. Thank you. So welcome everyone for joining us tonight. I am really excited about this presentation that I'm going to give you tonight because what was given to me was the 5 keys to freedom and how to unlock what's within us in order to access the freedom within ourselves, because we don't go out and get freedom. We become free through the shifts in our belief systems, our thoughts, our consciousness, and just the way that we approach everyday things. And what I'm excited about sharing is that these are things that we can apply to everyday life. But what I'm able to show everybody is how Arbonne supported me in unlocking these tools within myself. So for anyone that I haven't met yet, my name is Kristen Dolan, and I have been an independent consultant with Arbonne for over 10 years. And I never thought I was going to be one of these people, but I am so glad that I am, because of the level of freedom that it's brought into my life. So the first key that was brought to me was my health. And so when I first got started with Arbonne, I was very, very sick. I was dealing with a ton of chronic illnesses. I was diagnosed with several different autoimmune diseases. I had rheumatoid arthritis, I had lupus, I had uveitis, I had IBS stuff, I had seizures all the time, I had terrible memory and brain fog issues. Like, life was really, really challenging. And not only was it hard on a day-to-day basis, it was very hard to understand why my body was responding the way that it was, because I would say all the time, like, I am way too young to feel so old. I was on 10 to 12 different medications a day. I was every day seeing different doctors, and nothing was changing. If anything, I was getting worse. And I felt so defeated and frustrated and lost, so lost. So when Arbonne came around, I didn't join because I wanted to be this rah-rah Arbonne person. I wanted to make some money because I had a lot of medical bills and I needed some extra money to pay them off, because I felt so guilty with how my illnesses were costing my family. So there was the financial impact of it, there was the emotional impact of it, there was the physical impact of it. It was awful. So I got started with Arbonne. I had a background in pharmaceutical sales, so the whole selling part didn't bother me. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can sell some skincare. And I got started, and within a couple of months, I did a 30-day to healthy living program that Arbonne has, with zero expectations of doing it. But what I realized was that within days, I started to feel better. I had a little bit more mobility in my joints. The brain fog was a little bit better. I was sleeping better. I had more energy. And what I discovered through the use of our products was that this program was introducing me to the foods in my diet that were contributing to why I wasn't feeling good. Because most autoimmune or chronic illness or different ways to look at it are inflammatory responses of the body to what we're consuming on a daily basis. And so what this program taught me was that if I removed the foods and the beverages that were contributing to the inflammatory response, then my body was able to start healing itself. And it was so amazing to realize that I had the power all the time. I just didn't know it. So what this program introduced to me was the power of choice. So I knew that if I chose this, I was going to feel this way. And if I chose that, I was going to feel that way. And how empowering is that to be able to go through life, not only with the awareness of what foods we're going to, how we're going to do, to be able to have the presence and relationship with my body, to know what my body needed. And to me, that was freedom, because I knew far too well what it was like to be so sick. And unfortunately, I often say that most people won't appreciate their health until they don't have it. Because you can have everything else, but if you don't feel good, you can't be available to your life. So to be able to be gifted those tools, to me, was my first introduction to unlocking what was within me, because it all changed because of me and the choices that I made. And within a very short period of time, my body completely transformed. I was off all the medications I was on. I was active. I was doing yoga like 4 or 5 times a week. I felt better, and life improved drastically. So there's so much that just comes from understanding that the power of choices in our life really do allow us to become free within our own lives, because before that, I was a victim of my life. I thought I was eating the right thing. I thought that my, plain Greek yogurt with granola and berries every morning was a healthy choice, until I learned that my body really didn't like the gluten, and it definitely didn't like dairy, right? So I wasn't doing something I thought was wrong. I just learned that it wasn't what my body wanted. So that was number one that came through for me, was the freedom of health. Number 2 is wealth. Now, this is a really tricky one, because we all have very different, I'm going to say, relationships with wealth and with money. Because for most of us, whatever we're carrying around in regards to money didn't start with us. For most of it, it's kind of a generational thing. Like, I have great grandparents that grew up during the Great Depression in New York City. And so I grew up in a household where you didn't waste food. You ate everything that was on your plate. And, we didn't spend money on things that we didn't necessarily need. It was a very lack mindset. So this was carried down through generations. And what happens when you don't have a freedom with the way that you allow money to flow in and out of your life, you end up in this very not enough mindset. You're never going to have enough. And so we hoard money, we hold on to it, and we tend to not spend money on ourselves, right? Especially for things that really do benefit us. But the opposite is, a lot of us will binge and go on splurges with money. So a perfect example would be, I would never spend money on myself, ever. But I had no problem buying my daughters matching Escalade electronic cars when they were 3 years old, because that made sense, because they needed that, but I wouldn't give myself a spa day, right? So you see the different mindset in our relationship with money. And what Arbonne introduced to me was this freedom of flow with money, because in Arbonne, you're paid based on your willingness, your effort, and your belief in what you're worthy of receiving. So that's a kind of a different formula than what we're used to. Usually it's work hard and you get paid. And this was a very different mindset. It was my willingness to show up and serve myself and other people with what I was learning with my Arbonne business, but it was also the effort I was willing to put into it, add the belief I had in what I was worthy of receiving. So if you're not aware, the level I'm at with Arbonne, we are given a car allowance to drive a white Mercedes. Now, I would never go out and buy myself a Mercedes. Like, not only would I wouldn't spend that much money on a vehicle, I just wouldn't even consider myself somebody who drove a Mercedes, if that makes sense, but because of Arbonne, I had no choice. I had to, in order to receive the car allowance, you have to go out and purchase a white Mercedes. So to be able to walk into a dealership and receive the Mercedes because I earned it, because I deserved it, was such a different mindset than like an entitlement way of looking at it. So Arbonne really opened up for me the way the abundance of money flows in and out of our life. Do I have abundant months with flow with Arbonne consistently? No, some months are better than others. And I can always look back on the month and see the difference in how I was showing up for myself those months. So my money flow is a complete reflection of the reality that I'm living in on a daily basis. But the reality is our world is based on the belief systems that we have and what we're worthy of receiving. And this is stuff that I know sounds like funky crazy, but I never would have known this without my experience of working in a network marketing industry. Because, for most people, what we get paid is left up to somebody else deciding how much money we should get paid. Like, really think about that. Like, think about the way the system is set up, that somebody else determines your salary. Somebody else determines, if you're going to get a raise or not. There might be some sort of bonus structure, but that's usually in a controlled format as to what you can and can't earn as well. And in our business, all of that there's no middleman to decide how much money you're going to make. I'm not here to say that, you're going to wake up, you're going to join Arbonne, you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow. But I can tell you that it's a beautiful way to be able to create a monetary flow into your life. Because the more people that you help find success, the more successful you will be. There's no competition. There's, you're not competing with somebody else for the same job. There's plenty of room for everybody to be at the top of the company, where in most traditional places, there's only one spot at the top. And then it kind of starts to expand from there. So there might be a CEO, and then there might be some officers of the company, and then there's going to be lots of vice presidents, because everybody has to have a vice president title. And then there's like administrative staff. And as you can see, like, it gets wider at the bottom. But the reality is, the person that's here, the odds of them ever getting to the top of this company is pretty slim, because there's only one spot. Where in network marketing, you literally flip that upside down, because everybody coming in has the same exact opportunity to get to the top of the company. And there's no limit as to what can happen. Oliver wants to say hello. He's confirming that what I'm saying is truth. That when you get to the top of the company, there's no cap, because as long as we're all helping other people build their business, then Arbonne continues to grow as well. So everybody wins. And so it's a true abundant business model that we get to walk into with this company. And I say this with most network marketing companies, and being an entrepreneur as well. You know, you can decide what you're going to get paid and what you're not. But the key with Arbonne is I don't have any overhead with this company. So that's part of the key part of being an independent consultant, right? Like, I don't have to be the one that's shipping out the product. I'm not the one packaging the product. I'm not the one warehousing the product. You know, Arbonne takes care of all that for me. Okay, number 3 that came in was time. Now, you can make all the money in the world, but if you don't have any time, then you're never really going to get to enjoy it. And to kind of piggyback on what I was saying before, isn't it amazing that we live in a world that it's become so normal for us to have to ask permission from somebody else so that we can have time for the people that matter in our lives? So whether it's, you know, you have a sick parent, or you have a family commitment, or you have children, or let's just say you need a day to yourself, like, there is somebody else that you have to ask permission from in order to have that. That is mind-blowing to me that that's normal for people. So when I joined, my girls were in preschool. And so they're now freshmen in high school. And their entire lives, I have been completely available to their school events, classroom mom, PTA, if they got sick and needed to stay home, or they needed to get picked up, or whatever it was, I was always available because I was able to prioritize my time. So whether it was, can you excuse me for 1 second for this dog? Because, you know, he's obviously the priority of my time. Sorry. So when it comes to my calendar, my priorities go in first, which is my family and the stuff I do for me. And then I fill in when my working hours are. So, you know, you flip around your relationship with time. And there is nothing more beautiful in your life when your time is your choice. And that I'm not looking for somebody else to give me permission. I don't have to check with somebody else's schedule. It's my choice on my watch, and it's my time. And I own that 100%. So that has been another gift that's been given to me that, again, I never would have known existed without being a part of this company. So number 4 is a fun one because it's relationships. And the reason why is because most of us aren't aware of how we're not free in the relationships we have in our life. And what I mean by that is we tend to very easily give our power away to other people in our life without making ourselves the main priority. And the thing about this business is you need people. You can't build this business without people. And the biggest mistake we make is we go out and we treat people like we need them. And the reality is we need to recognize that we have a gift to offer people, but we can't be attached to to what their response is going to be. And think about that in all of your relationships in your life. Like, how often do we attach an expectation and then we get disappointed in the person when they don't meet the expectation that we had for them. So imagine taking your relationships in your life and knowing that you are completely sovereign to whether or not somebody shows up in this form, in this capacity or that capacity, and it has no impact on you, that they're free to be how they want to be, and I am free to be how I need to be. And that was a long lesson for me to learn, because when you're successful in a business like this, I can't tell you how passionate I was about wanting to empower other people with what was possible for them. And when people didn't want to be a part of it with me, I took it really personally. And how unfair is that? Because the reality is, I was almost setting them up that they couldn't say yes, because my expectation on them was so big that it was almost too much for them to be able to say yes to it, because I wasn't giving them this safe space that it can be whatever they needed it to be, because it didn't have to be for them what it was for me, and being able to give people that type of grace. The other thing I want to add about relationships is they say you're most like the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so really think about that, because in this type of industry, you're going to be surrounded with people who think and act and are passionate and excited and goal-oriented like you are. And so when you show up at events and there's Arbonne people there, there's this just knowing. There's this knowing, like, you know, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. You know, a level of freedom that other people don't know. You know what it's like to be able to inspire and empower yourself as well as other people. And being around people like that is the best feeling. And so why wouldn't you want to be surrounded with people like that? You know, like, I talk to friends that work in other industries, and like, it's so upsetting to me how miserable they are in their jobs. Like, that's where we spend a lot of our time throughout the day. And you're surrounded by people who don't even want to be there. Like, when it comes to something like this, like, people choose to be here. And there's a very different energy and frequency and mindset to people who are where they choose to be versus where they have to be. And so being able to have the freedom of choice in regards to the people that you spend your time with, and having the freedom to create healthy boundaries with the people that you spend your time with, was life-changing for me to understand that, because nobody was going to determine how I was going to feel. That was I get to determine that. And for a long time, I allowed other people to determine if I was going to, you know, be happy because they said yes to me, or be sad because they said no to me. And that's not fair to do to other people. So being able to take back that power really did introduce a lot of freedom into my life. And the last key to unlocking the freedom within is ourselves. And so when you really think about yourself, there needs to be this level of responsibility within the 4 things that we just talked about in order to truly access the freedom within you. Because if you're not willing to take responsibility for your health so that you know how your body is going to respond to the choices that you make, or you're not going to take responsibility for creating the income in your life so that somebody else isn't determining what you're worth, or you're taking the responsibility to be able to have a say in how your time is spent so that another person doesn't get to determine that for you. And then being able to take responsibility for the relationships in your life and the balance and power that you have with other people. These are all things that we have to really spend some time getting to know ourselves and maybe receive some humbling lessons along the way in order to discover these things about ourselves. But it's such a beautiful, safe container to be able to do that here, because you're going to be surrounded by people who are either a couple steps ahead of you, or they're running alongside of you. Either way, everybody's here reflecting back at you who, the highest potential that's within yourself. And if that's not true freedom, I don't know what is, because this world wants us to think that freedom lies outside of us. And if I can empower you with anything tonight, I want you to know that your true freedom lies inside of you. And all you have to do is unlock the truth of who you are and believe in who you are and trust who you are. If anything I said tonight resonated with you, please trust that your body was saying yes to you. So just remember that, like, you are the person who really gets the final say in how you live your life. And we have spent a long time being told something very, very, very different. So I know this industry is not for everybody. And I know that it's not always the easiest path to walk. But to me, it's the most tangible access I have discovered to being able to walk through a doorway and arrive in a different mindset, a different frequency, a different consciousness, into what true, self is. So if you want to take the expressway with us and dive in and be able to unlock what's inside of you, we're here to lock arms with you. If it's not for you, that's totally fine too. We're just so glad that you were here to join us tonight. And if there's anything else you guys want to share, I'm going to hand the mic back over to Oksana and Tina and the lovely ladies that are here tonight. But for that, thank you very much for listening to me this evening. I'm very grateful.